I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
Shut it down! 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 Shut it down!
Well, let's start with that. Why is it a victory to have this man standing out here with us that you're standing next to?
Because he never stops fighting and struggling. He was so wrongly held in solitary confinement for more years than your students are old, for almost 30 years, 37 years?
44 years.
44 years in solitary and 46 years in prison?
About 45.
45, okay, so I had the numbers wrong, but for identifying with the Black Panther Party, basically, totally wrongly accused of murdering a guard and just put in solitary for all those years. Came out and has been fighting for human rights around the world, not just in the United States since then. Wouldn't you say that's true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We since I've been out, Robin and I have been to Robert Hillary King, the other member of the 83. We've been to England, France, Denmark, Sweden, and we've had an opportunity to speak with lawmakers and leaders of local activist organizations, as well as talk about the horrors of solitary confinement, and try to get people to understand that solitary confinement is probably the most brutal, non-physical form of torture in existence in this country, and probably in the world, to isolate an individual with the sole purpose of breaking his spirit and destroying his sense of who they are, and discourage them from being actively involved in social struggle.
Mass incarceration! Said mass incarceration! He said mass incarceration! He said the new Jim Crow! He said the new Jim Crow!
I wanted to fight in solidarity with people of the world and with Black people in the United States in particular was partly what Albert represents, which is that the struggle for humanity, for human rights, for justice, starts with the freedom of Black people, Native Americans in this country. And despite the hundreds and hundreds of years of torture, slavery, solitary confinement, that flame of resistance has never been quenched. So the fact that Albert got out, took a minute to blink his eyes to the sunlight, and then began fighting for human rights and defined the struggle to free political prisoners as a struggle for human rights and not just a struggle to get out of prison is really an inspiring thing.
Prison lives matter! 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 Prison lives matter!
I'm so happy to be here. I can't tell you how important this event is. It gives former prisoners and their families and friends an opportunity to speak in one voice. And hopefully the message here today will spread around America and around the world, and we can start doing something about mass prison incarceration. We can destroy the private prison industrial complex, which is exploiting prisoners, slave labor under the 13th Amendment. We're trying to demand a hearing before a U.S. Congress so that we can address this and make the people in America and the world realize that slavery in America is still here and it's legal. And the 13th Amendment only changes slave ownership from the individual to the states and the federal government. And you have a situation now where the these major corporations that start to sign these sweetheart deals with Department of Corrections throughout America, and they are exploiting slave labor. And the ironic thing about it is that while they will exploit the labor while you're in prison, if you're lucky enough to get out, they won't give you a job because you're an ex-convict, you know. How ironic, how hypocritical, you know. And at some
That
point,
you could only work if you're in prison.
yeah, and as a legal slave of the state, you know. So, you know, at some point in time, Robert and I are working towards accumulating a list of some of these corporations and making it available to the American public, and call for a boycott of whatever products that these people are selling to the American public and around the world, because of the fact that a lot of it is being produced by slave labor in the prisons throughout this country. So that's a part of what we're struggling to do right now.
And notice that exposure comes from people who were incarcerated. This demonstration today, this rally, was called for by people who are incarcerated. In 1998, there was a demonstration here, the Jericho March for political prisoners. We were still in prison. We heard about it. It was much smaller than this. Now we're getting bigger because people are coming out and describing what goes on inside. But we're standing here. We've lost too many comrades. We lost Herman Wallace, one of the Angola Three. We've lost Safia Bukhari. We've lost so many, and still behind bars, Herman Bell, Jalil Montaqin, Robert Seth Hayes, Mutulu Shakur, Sundiata Acoli. A few minutes ago we were chanting Assata's chant. Sundiata Acoli, her co-defendant, has been in prison since 1973. He's 80 years old. So we have a lot of work to do. Free all political prisoners and tear it down.
And all power to the people.
Yeah.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.